guys, welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula 1 and another fantastic race provided at the Turkish Grand Prix, Istanbul, once again delivering the goods in my personal opinion on a exciting race. Admittedly wasn't as exciting as last year's, but still a solid race with the tyre conditions. Shall we stay out? Shall we pit? Shall we try for slicks? What are we doing? It really threw a lot of things up in the air, and it was a strategic battle that I thoroughly enjoyed. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out with a maximum of 10 points if they have a particularly good weekend. I do go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Be careful though, because I do award bonus points if they have a extra special race, and I award minus points if they have a extra special race for all the wrong reasons. So we're going to kick things off, of course, with the race winner, Valtteri Bottas, disqualified on the Crawl Room due to his antics in previous races. But a credit to his team there, played a fantastic wingman role and delivered Mercedes the goods when it mattered. Lining up P2, which meant starting from P1 after Hamilton's 10th-place grid drop, of course, for the engine. Led away off the line, dominated the race, kept Max and the Red Bull team at bay, really. Comfortably always around 3.5 seconds, edging up to about 4.5. Max closed it back into around 2 very, very briefly in the race, but Bottas was just managing, wasn't he? Just managing, and as soon as he needed to pull that gap, he did again. In the end, finishing over 12 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. So Bottas did a fantastic job, and if you contrast that with what he did 12 months ago, where he was just spinning off at every given corner, I think he had more spins than there were corners on the track last year. Polar opposites, an incredible drive and thoroughly deserving of a full 10 points, but sadly he's disqualified, and it's frustrating, but I'm not undisqualifying drivers, I'm not going back on my word. But if this was to be Bottas's last Formula 1 win, then by gum, what a way to go out on. What a way to go out on is all I'm going to say. That was a fantastic drive. Didn't put a wheel wrong and bagged himself fastest lap point for the pleasure as well. So well done, Valtteri. That was a stunning drive. Shame he disqualified, but I don't go back on my word. But well done. Next up, Max Verstappen in P2 for the Red Bull squad. He'd have been hoping for a win, wouldn't he? As soon as he knew that Hamilton was taking 10 places, he'd have thought, right, I need to win this. And he just didn't have the ability to be able to catch, pass and overtake Bottas. He didn't even have the ability to catch him, to be honest. Off the line, Bottas had a slightly better start, and from there, that was it. That was it. He was going to get P2 at best, and P2 he did get. So yeah, a solid weekend for Max. Didn't have the measure of the Mercedes team this weekend, not Hamilton or Bottas, but of course with Hamilton's penalty, managed to finish ahead of his main title rival, which is all that counts for Max's standards. And yeah, 8 points. Yeah, it'd have been 8 points, wouldn't it? Max finishing in P2 with 18 points. Hamilton down in 5th in the end with 10. So takes the championship lead to a swing now of 6 points in Max's favour, going into Austin, which I believe is another Mercedes circuit, but we will wait to see. So yeah, Max Verstappen, 9 points this weekend. Thought that was a great drive by him. Best he could have done. Kept it controlled, kept it measured. He knew he had to pick up those points this weekend and did a good job in doing so. Well done, Max. And then we come to Verstappen's teammate, Sergio Perez. When was the last time he was on the podium? Must be... Oh, has he had one after Baku? I honestly cannot remember. Such franticness as this season been, I'm struggling to keep up. But Perez has had a tough time at Red Bull. Qualifying didn't look to have gone well, did it? Down in 7th, starting P6. And eventually just worked his way up to P4 off the line after Gasly and Alonso tangled together. And he nipped up the inside. And then in the race, it looked like he was comfortably P4. Charles making the strategic error, shall we say, in staying out too long on those used intermediates, nipping through into P3, and that's where he stayed. Again, another wingman playing a fantastic role to keep Hamilton behind for as long as he did there while they were going through that duel, which I thought was really exciting, and fair play to both of them, because Perez could have easily just hoofed Hamilton off there, and he didn't. He gave him lots of racing room, lots of respect, and provided a nice little element of the race in the mid part of the race. And then once Perez came in and pit, obviously that released Hamilton. And then when Hamilton pitted, he was quite a way behind Perez. So yeah, it was a good race in the end for Sergio Perez, recovering well from a poor qualifying by Red Bull standards. And yeah, for that reason, it's going to be 8 points, which is the most I've given him in quite a long time, if ever, to be honest with you. So yeah, 8 points to Perez. A good drive, provided a good battle, and played a brilliant wingman role and a supportive role to his teammate Max. So, yeah, well done, Perez. And then we come to Sha-la-la. And here he is, sha-la-la. Looked like he sha-la-la'd his way up to a win, but sadly those tyres could not hang on, and he had to sha-la-la pit and unfortunately finished down in P4 in the end. Nonetheless, a good race by Leclerc to be in P4 here, and of course a good qualifying as well, a strong qualifying there. Qualifying P4, starting P3, running around in P3 throughout most of it, comfortably as well. They elected to stay out and try and go for the win, and I can't blame Ferrari for that at all. But sadly he couldn't hold on, so finishes in P4 after pitting once again. Those tyres were gone, weren't they? And it's going to be 8 points to Shah for that effort. I might be being a little bit harsh there. I know he did all he could, but just those two little mistakes going into the final few corners. After coming down the long straight, he made two big errors there, didn't he? Locking up, flat spotting that tyre, losing the temperature out of the tyres, and if he'd have just been a little bit more careful, maybe, just maybe, he could have held on with those tyres a little bit longer and got himself on the podium. But again, you know, I don't want to take anything away from it, but those couple of mistakes could have cost him a podium this weekend, so that's why it's 8 points. But I don't blame him, and I don't blame Ferrari for trying it. They could have won this weekend. So fair play to Shah. 8 points to you. And then we come to Lewis Hamilton in 5th position. Oh, what do I say about this? Because it was getting frustrating, wasn't it? It was getting frustrating. All I'm going to say is it's not going to be a rant as such, but you put your faith in your team in Sochi, and they delivered you the win. And when they tell you to pit, you don't pit. And it was so frustrating to hear him say, no, I'm staying out. Because, yeah, he'd have probably fallen back behind Perez, but you could have then had the opportunity and plenty of laps to re-overtake Perez. You'd have got Leclerc because he was staying out. He could have been on the podium. He could have been on the podium had he listened to his team this weekend, and that team delivered him the win in the previous race. I know it's difficult for you to understand what's going on in a race with tyres, times of other cars, etc., because you are racing on your own, keeping that car on the track. But he just wanted to get to the end on those sets of tyres, didn't he? And we saw Ocon at the end there, tumbling down the order like a stone. He was very lucky, Ocon, not to actually be overtaken by the two Alfa Romeos, such as his pace was lost. So he pitted in no man's land. I think Mercedes, what you have to understand is Mercedes are going for a constructors here as well, and they didn't want Hamilton's tyre exploded on the last lap and him scoring no points, just as much as Hamilton didn't want that. They wanted him to pit to ensure that they scored points, and P5 from P11 is not a bad race. Okay, it's a bad race in terms of Hamilton's personal opinion because he wanted to finish one place behind Max or ahead of Max. I get it. But this, it was frustrating to hear him just, no, I'm not doing it. Okay, Lewis, then we'll just carry on then. And then they had to pit him, and then he pitted, and then he was moaning because he was out in 5th, and then he couldn't get past the cars that he'd been passed by. And it was frustrating. So it's going to be 7 points to Hamilton this weekend. I could go on a rant about it because I just don't feel I need to, because I understand Hamilton's frustration there. I really do, in terms of he wanted to finish behind Max or as close to Max as possible. But I think when they look back at it, they go through the debrief, I think had he pitted when he was told to by Mercedes first time around, he could have been on the podium. At very worst, P4. I don't think he'd have been finishing P5. But yeah, I think he'd have been ahead of Leclerc, and that would have got him P4. So yeah, okay, you were driving around in 3rd. You didn't want to pit, but you definitely lost a position, maybe 2, as a result of you doing what you did. And then when you finally listened to your team, it was too late. And yeah, so frustrating. So it's going to be 7 points to Lewis. I get where he's coming from, but it annoyed me. It really annoyed me. And then we come to Pierre Gasly picking up a bullshit 5-second time penalty for his collision with Alonso at the start. He just got squeezed. But it happened to Bottas, didn't it, this time last year at turn 1. I don't think anyone got done for that either. But Perez was up the inside, Gasly was in the middle, Alonso was going around the outside. 3-1 on a corner that closes so dramatically, was never going to work. One car was going to go off. Unfortunately, it was Alonso. Gasly picked up a 5-second time penalty, and without that, he could have been ahead of Charles and Lewis this weekend. So those 5 seconds were incredibly costly. So, not to worry, I don't blame that against Gasly. That was a racing incident at the start of the race. We rarely see 5-second time penalties awarded on lap 1, but this time it happened. But nonetheless, 9 points to Pierre Gasly. A great qualifying, a great race. Just a shame that happened to him, that he got those 5 seconds, because he could have been P4. But nonetheless, racing's racing. Stewards are the stewards. Enrique Bernaldi was the driver's steward this weekend, so I think that says it all. The mighty Enrique Bernaldi. What did he ever do? So yeah, 9 points to Pierre Gasly. And then we come to Lando Norris. In no man's land, really. P7 in the end. McLaren didn't look to have the pace, did it? Ricciardo out in Q1. Norris lining up 9th after Hamilton's penalty, was only 10th. And then just measled around the bottom half of the points, didn't he? Nothing special, nothing spectacular. 7 points, it's as simple as that. A bit of a lonely race by McLaren standards. But yeah, I think they knew they were going to struggle this weekend, and they did. So maybe back down to earth and back down to reality with a bit of a bang. But nonetheless, I'm sure they'll be fighting back in Austin next time out. But just for now, 7 points to Norris. And then we come to my driver of the day, as well as pretty much everyone else's driver of the day. It's Carlos Sainz. What an exciting race by Carlos, working his way through the field subliminally. Can't even say the word. Subliminally. No, I don't know. Don't even know what I'm trying to say now, but I'll carry on anyway. Fantastic. It was an amazing job. Fantastic job, Carlos. Thoroughly deserving of a full 10 points on the crawl room. You carved your way through the field so brilliantly, and you'd have been even higher up. You'd have been ahead of Norris, and I think you'd have been on the heels of Gasly. I'm not saying you'd have been ahead of him, but a slow pit stop cost him time. 8.1 seconds. I don't know what happened there. It was almost like all the tyres were on. He was up in the air and he's like, "Can you drop me, please? I need to go." I don't know what happened, but it's all manual now, isn't it? And the guy, the lollipop guy and the front jack release guy has to get all green lights before he touches the car, so before he releases it. So unfortunate. But yeah, I think it could have been definitely one more place higher up. It'd have been ahead of Norris and maybe on the back of Gasly as well. So yeah, frustrating. But nonetheless, that was not his fault, and that's a full 10 points to Carlos Sainz. Stunning job. Brilliant. And then we come to Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, picking up a couple of points. And Aston Martin looked fair to middling this weekend, didn't they? We've seen them off the pace where they're not even in the points. This weekend, both cars comfortably into Q3, and then sort of comfortably running around the bottom half of the top 10, 8th, 9th, 10th area. And Stroll is picking up P9. So yeah, best of the rest category really, I suppose, for them. A couple of points. Decent. Stroll, not really any mistakes. So 8 points to him I think is fair. I think he did a good job. Nothing special, but it was just the pace of the car this weekend. So yeah, nice to see a couple of points scored by Aston Martin. And yeah, 8 points to Lance Stroll. And then we come to Esteban Ocon picking up the final points, paying position, a solitary for Esteban Ocon. That's my French, and that's all I'm doing. Oh, what do we say for Esteban? I think it was a goodish race. It was the only one not to stop. He stayed out on those lovely slick immediates right until the end, didn't he? And he was struggling at the end. He was overtaken by Stroll. He was only 6/10 away from being overtaken by Giovinazzi and Raikkonen behind him. So he could have lost out on the points, but gained 1 and stayed there, P10, so crucial point. And it's going to be 7 points on the board to Esteban Ocon for that. And the main reason why I'm docking points is it wasn't as good as his teammate in qualifying, wasn't as good as his teammate at the start of the race, and he just didn't have the pace, did he? Didn't have the pace. I know Alonso, of course, was out of the race rather rapidly, out of points contention rather rapidly, but I just feel that Ocon just wouldn't have offered and delivered. I mean, well, let's face it, Alonso was trying to go for third when that happened. When he had the incident at the start of the race, he was going for third. So, you know, it was a shame. But yeah, nonetheless, 7 points to Ocon. I don't want to criticise him too much, but Ocon definitely was not on the pace of his teammate throughout the entire weekend. And had that been Alonso doing the no-stop, I think we'd have seen him a lot further up. And then in 11th place, it's Antonio Giovinazzi, the Italian stallion, once again. And here he is in P11. And you know what? I'm actually pleased with that. I think he's done a cracking job. Qualifying was shite for the pair of the Sauber Romeos. But they always have been in these wet intermediate conditions, haven't they? But in the race, they're suddenly really good. So set up for a full race trim. Both drivers were 13th and 14th throughout most of the race, having made so much headway and progress through the field that went unseen, which was a bit of a shame. And then we get to the end of the race. Here they are, almost getting points. But they didn't do anything wrong this weekend. Didn't put a wheel wrong, did Antonio. Neither did the team. We didn't have speed into the pit lane. We didn't drop the car off the jack. We didn't have a flat tyre when he came in for the pit stop. We didn't do anything wrong, and here he is 11th, 6 tenths away from a point. So fair play to him for that. So Antonio, it's going to be 8 points. Wow, you have a crap qualifying and recover it in the race. I'd sooner you do this, Antonio, but get points than have a good qualifying and a bad race. And I think the team would as well. But there you go, 8 points to Antonio. And then we come to Kimi Räikkönen, Antonio's teammate, and well done Kimi, another cracking drive by him. He was frustrated to be caught up and bottled up behind his teammate because he thinks he could have gone faster. I think he could have done as well, but they decided not to do team orders and decided to keep him line astern, so maybe if Räikkönen had had a chance he could have nabbed that point. But nonetheless, P12, a solid drive, a solid race from a poor qualifying. It's getting the same as Antonio. Didn't do anything wrong. Fantastic effort. 8 points to him as well. Nice to see some encouraging words from myself about Alfa Romeo, about their drivers, because nothing went wrong. Apart from, sort your drinks bottle out. Sort your drinks bottle out. My feet are fucking wet. There you go. Well done, Kimi. Him and that drinks bottle. Ah, dear. And next up is Daniel Ricciardo escaping a Palmer of the Week this week. Escaping a Palmer of the Week. Because at least he got some brand new engine bits in the car after his pathetic qualifying down in 16th. They elected to start him at the back of the grid after dismally doing dismal. And yeah, elected to change pretty much everything in that car to just start 20th. In the race, he was running no higher than 16th. Couldn't make the progress through like Sainz could. Pitted, got him himself up into P10, P11, weren't he? And then his inters were wearing down as the others were getting good again, who'd stopped a lot later. And here he is down outside the points in 13th. And yeah, 2 points. That's all it's going to be. Another erratic race weekend by Ricciardo standards. We know the car wasn't that good this weekend, and that's why I've kind of just avoided a Palmer, but I don't know if he deserved one or not. But nonetheless, 2 points. Another off weekend for Daniel Ricciardo. And then we come to Yuki Tsunoda.
I help the environment now. I pick up the litter at Costco, you bastard.
Yuki, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Oh, Yuki, you had a good qualifying. You had a good start to the race. You held off. You were the only one to hold off Hamilton in those first few laps because you kept him behind for 8. And everyone else was just like, come through, Lewis. Come through, Lewis. Come through, Lewis. Until he got up to Perez, basically. But Yuki was the only one to offer a solid fight to it. I thought, oh, come on, Yuki. Get some points. You can do this. Like, comfortably running around inside the top 10. And the latter half of the top 10, I'll admit. I think he was 10th, in fact. And then he went and spun. Yuki. UK. So yeah, I wanted to offer him praise this weekend after a cracking qualifying and looked to be a good start to the race. I thought, God, just pick up a point, Yuki. I can give you some points on the crawl room and I can say how well you're doing, and that was a great weekend. And you just... Yeah, Palmer of the Week, so Yuki Tsunoda. And then we come to George Russell, the curious case of George Russell. I'm going to mention that one once again. It's not been mentioned often, but an off weekend really by George's standards. That mistake in qualifying. He was 7/10 up on Ocon to get into Q3 and then lost it at the final corner, which was such a shame to see. But nonetheless, the race wasn't there either, was it? So I think if it had got inside the Q3, 10th, 9th, somewhere around there, then in the race it'd have only cost him to lose a couple of places, and he just didn't have the pace to keep anyone behind him, it seemed, or race with anyone. And sadly for George, we're in P nowhere. A lonely race, a difficult race. And that's, you know, had we said that George had just had a clean and tidy race, not had any contact with anyone, had a chance for a Q3 appearance but missed it by one corner, you'd have been saying, oh, good weekend. But it's not from the last few races, so it's going to be a middle-of-the-road 5 for George. That was a tough weekend to judge, but yeah, frustrating that he missed out on Q3, but I don't think he'd have done much more than he did in the race, even with the Q3 appearance. So yeah, middle-of-the-road 5 to Mr. Russell. And then we come to Fernando Alonso, and I was going to score him higher than this, and then I remembered he took Mick out, and I felt so sorry for Mick, although I have just seen some lovely pictures of Alonso going to hug Schumacher at the end of the race and apologised. And I thought, oh, that's sweet, Alonso. You finally admitted to something for the first time in your life that you were wrong. But nonetheless, you know, Alonso, it was a cracking qualifying effort, an amazing effort. It was a great launch off the line to get yourself round the outside to potentially put yourself P3. And it just didn't happen, did it? Just a little coming together with Gasly, which I don't blame Gasly for. I don't blame Alonso for. It was 3-1, was never going to work. He got pirouetted around, and I'd have just liked to have seen him make a little bit more progress than he did in the end. Maybe a bit of damage to the car after the contact. And then he just got going again, and then he tagged and spun Mick round, and he got himself a 5-second time penalty. And I just thought, oh, it was just scruffy from then on, wasn't it? So everything got undone at the first corner, which wasn't his fault. But then after that, I think he was trying too hard to make up positions, make up places. And he was scruffy for the rest of the race. So it's just 4 points to Alonso, and that absolutely devastates me. And I'm not a massive fan of Alonso since his return, but he's proved me wrong on so many occasions. I felt he deserved a lot more this weekend than he did. And then he hit me, and I was like, oh no. So yeah, 4 points to Fernando. And then we come to Nicolas Latifah, Mr. Anonymous this weekend, probably the most anonymous driver on the grid, actually. He's disqualified on the cruel room anyway, and this weekend he did nothing special for me to even give him a special mention for doing anything special, because nothing was special. It was all lacklustre. So yeah, disqualified Nicolas Latifah, a lonely race. And then we come to Sebastian Vettel.
Palmer of the week. I'm selling burgers out the back of a van now.
You spin me right round, baby, right round when I put slick tyres on a wet track. What was that? I mean, he must have called for that. He must have done. The team, Sebastian. I can't even say it was worth the risk because you was in the points. If you're outside the points doing a Ricardo, go for it. But you're inside the points. You were with your teammate. You're in that 8th, 9th, 10th area. And then you put mediums on. If anything, 20 laps to go and you got mediums, lads, get them mediums on. I need a really hard, dry compound for this incredibly wet track. Oh dear me. Like, I just cannot believe it. It's got to be Palmer of the week because I just cannot believe it. And he just got out the pits, swinging and swinging, like, oh, I'm off this way, I'm spinning that way, oh, I'm off that way. I'll spin in the pit lane as well just to prove how wet it is. And then he just came on the radio, yeah, that's not gone well. I don't think it took a genius to work out what was happening there. Every other car was pitting for intermediates and they thought mediums. So yeah, I don't know whether it was Vettel's call to go for mediums, but it was certainly Vettel's call to say, let's try slicks. It had to have been his call. And yeah, it was an incredibly bad one because he lost an entire lap being incredibly slow, especially around turn 8 when they're on board with him. He's just like that and everything, wham, like me nan driving through a car park. So yeah, Palmer of the week to Vettel. We'll get to the bottom of who made that decision, but Vettel certainly had some input in it. And then we come to Mick Schumacher. Oh, Mick. Oh, it could have been so much better for you, couldn't it? What a cracking performance there in qualifying. Credit where credit is due. That was a phenomenal lap in Q1 to get him into Q2. And then in Q2 he had his lap ruined by Stroll spinning off, didn't he, in front of him. He was starting on the soft compound tyre. Everyone else running mediums because obviously if it was a dry race, Q2 depicts what tyres you start on if you're inside the top 10, of course. So Stroll went spinning at turn 1. It caused Alonso to abort his lap and caused Mick to abort his lap. So Mick never got a proper lap in Q2. And when Russell made the mistake and Ocon didn't improve on his lap time, I think we could have seen Mick in P12 starting that race today had it not been for that. Because, like I said, Russell's lap were ruined. Ocon didn't improve. It was only 2 or 3 tenths away, and we saw the amount of progress Russell was making on Ocon. It could have so easily been that he would have been not inside the top 10, but certainly 12th. So, yeah, a shame. And then in the race, it all came undone. He was driving well. He was maintaining the position where he started. I think he let Sainz go, and that was about it. And then obviously Alonso spinning, returned back onto the track, and then a couple of laps later made an audacious move up the inside and bang, spun Mick round. Mick were then stuck behind his teammate for quite a long time, which put him well out of contention of overtaking anyone else other than his teammate. And here he is finishing in 19th. A great shame for what was and what could have been. It wasn't going to be in a spectacular race. I'm not going to claim we were going to get points, but I think he could have finished ahead of Latifi had he not been stuck behind Mazepin. And he could have maybe finished, well, I think he'd have finished ahead of probably Vettel as well, wouldn't he? So, yeah, there could have been a couple of cars he could have finished ahead of this weekend, Mick, had it not been for the spin with Alonso that wasn't his fault. So it's going to be 8 points to Mick this weekend. Really love that drive. Really enjoyed that qualifying. I was jumping up and down. I was so happy for him. And yeah, unfortunately the race didn't go his way. Q2 didn't go his way either, but that was an impressive performance nonetheless. So yeah, 8 points to Mick. And then we come to Nikita, and what do we say about Mars's spin other than, oh, he did many spins, didn't he? Mr. Mars's spin and his many spins. Plenty in practice, plenty in qualifying. I didn't see any in the race, to be fair to him, but maybe we're just off camera, who knows? Yeah, and as you know, we don't award him any points on the Cruel Room because of his antics on and off the track and in his personal life, so we don't bother. And Dan Mushy Gaming just has his fun with him on the Cruel Room board, which will be popping up any second now. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. That was the runners and riders of the Turkish Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? Were you expecting a few more drivers to maybe gobble up some points? Ha ha! And of course, as always, the Cruel Room points out on the screen now. Let me know your thoughts and feedback. Where is your current favourite driver sitting in the championship? Are they down at the bottom? Are they up at the top? Let me know. It's a closely fought thing. It's closer than the World Championship itself. A massive thanks to Dan Mushy Gaming for providing me with the scoreboard. Without him keeping a track of things, this series will be more pointless than it already is. And of course, who forget, a big thank you to Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for doing the Parma skits that you all know and love by now. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you all next time around for the US Grand Prix at Austin. Another interesting race ahead, I feel. So take care, guys, and I'll see you all then. Much love.